Yes, hello again everybody. Welcome to the Wrestling Skull podcast. I'm your host John Scott, joined as always by my co-host Matt Essex. Matt, how are you this week from sort of our last week where we went sort of back in time to 1951?
Yeah, I'm good. Yeah, I mean, as fun as that was, I'm glad to be back in the present. There's so much going on, so much to get through.
Yeah, well, yeah, we're back into the modern times. I want to thank everybody that sent in some really good, positive reviews. I wasn't sure how you guys were going to take it because it was a little bit out there to go back to 1951 and review that match. But it seems, Matt, that we weren't the only ones that were very surprised in a pleasant way of how much enjoyment we got out of it. So it went down with everyone, and people have been asking, or have actually been requesting of us to do other matches, and are we going to do more, etc, etc. So we always say on this podcast, if there's anything in demand with our listeners, we normally will go along with that. We always kind of do. So if that's something people are interested in, and the majority like it, then that's something we'll definitely be considering for the future. And we do have plans to have our own little series of sort of the wrestling art series, where we're going to go back in time and review more of these classic matches. Well, let's get into what happened. I guess we've got to get straight off the bat. We're live tonight, going up before Raw goes out tonight. We had WWE Clash of Champions, the first Raw pay-per-view, if you can call it a pay-per-view these days. I mean, it's odd calling it a pay-per-view because it's kind of, it is, but it isn't. I mean, it's WWE Network. So I don't know. Do we call it a pay-per-view anymore? WWE Network does, but I'm not sure. I know it still gets sold out there on other mediums and stuff like that still, but me personally, I think you've got to be pretty balmy to be paying out the kind of value for a box office or pay-per-view for one of these for one of these shows. I think you've definitely got to go with the network as your best option and most affordable option, to have two of those pay-per-views included in your 1 month subscription for $9.99. There you go, even I'm saying it now. But Matt, going into this Raw only pay-per-view, first and foremost, were you like sort of excited and the anticipation for this, or were you just sort of a bit like me? I was just going to wait and see after the SmackDown only one that we got earlier in the month. What was your thoughts going into this?
Yeah, same for me. I was pretty much wait and see. I mean, coming into this, I wasn't exactly blown away by any of the current feuds going on in Raw. I mean, there's some good ones, but there's nothing outstanding there. Yeah.
I mean, I'll be honest, the match I was most looking forward to was the main event, Seth Rollins and Kevin Owens on paper. I thought this is something that I haven't seen, at least in WWE. So that would be something I was definitely going to be looking forward to going into this. I think some of the other matches on paper look good, but then I kind of, in the back of my mind, I was thinking, I wonder how much time each match will get and what way they'll go with it. Nonetheless, let's start off here, Matt. Now, I don't know if you saw this. I don't know if you got to see the pre-show match, which featured the sort of typical kind of, we've been used to seeing Nia Jax in the squash matches. Now she's got her. I mean, this is, for me, Matt, I don't know what you think about this, but I thought they pulled this one too early to have this Alicia Fox kind of feud going on. Like, they always do this in the squash matches series. I've seen it with Umaga, I see it with Rusev. They get up to a certain point where someone's going to cause them slight problems. I think they pulled it in a little bit too early. I would have much rather seen the slow build still happening. They went with this way. I've got to say, the match itself, it was a bit, in periods it was too long. It wasn't great viewing. I just would rather see Nia Jax do what she's best at, rather than this. What was your thoughts on that match? I mean, obviously it was only under 5 minutes, not exactly a huge, great length of time. But your thoughts on that match on the pre-show?
Well, I think they chose the right one to go on to the pre-show. You know, out of all the matches they had that night, I think that was the right call on that. As regarding the match itself, yeah, it was nothing special, was it? I mean, they could have pulled this out of the bag on a standard kind of Raw thing. We've already seen them sort of have a bit of a fight already anyway, so the fact that they had to put this on a pre-show is a bit, I think they could have killed it up with something better, really.
Well, it's sort of becoming, I mean, the pre-show is the pre-show. I mean, I don't like the idea of matches that, this is what I don't like about the whole setup of the pay-per-view at the moment. Like, every time there's a pay-per-view, 2 hours before the pay-per-view comes on, you learn one of the matches has been, taken out and then get sort of slabbed onto the pre-show. I kind of don't like that. I'd rather them announce all the matches, stick with it, and then just have like a bonus match on the pre-show, something that we don't really know and it's just going to come at a bonus, because you can't really get an awful lot out of it. I'm not saying this Nia Jax match was exactly anything that anyone was looking forward to, but I'm just talking in general terms of the whole pre-show, the format of how they do it, about sort of, taking a match out of the pay-per-view. It gets sort of, shoved down to the pre-show just like nobody's business. What's your thoughts on that, Matt? I mean, is there a right or wrong way to do it, or do you think that's just in the current climate that we're in?
I don't really mind the idea of the pre-show too much, because you don't have to watch it. You can just watch the pay-per-view. You pretty much know what ones are going to get put on the pre-show. It was pretty obvious it was going to be Nia Jax one, I think, on this one. But say if you're having a sort of gathering, you get your friends over, you want to watch the pay-per-view, it could be good to have it on the TV in the background whilst you're chatting and whatever, and then getting ready for the pay-per-view. So it can serve a purpose, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I get it serves a purpose. I just don't like the idea of them announcing the card and then they just chuck one of those matches straight off. I'd rather them have just a match thrown up that we don't really, nobody's even aware that it's going to happen, because there's enough stars always doing nothing on these nights. So nonetheless, we got what we got. We never on this podcast anymore. We've decided when we do reviews, we don't give the pre-show match a rating, just because I think it's kind of unfair and it serves a different purpose in a lot of ways. So we won't be giving ratings on those ones. Okay, so the show starts itself, Clash of Champions, and Matt, I've got to say I ticked the box. I already put Raw over on SmackDown as far as the opening went, because the first thing they did is they actually put a match on. I hated what happened a couple of weeks ago on SmackDown, where we saw Daniel Bryan come out with Shane, and they were, just basically reiterating everything that we already knew, just to get more buzz on it. It just seemed like time filler in a lot of ways. So I was really glad that they didn't do the same thing, and they went with the the WWE Tag Team Championship match. I thought that was probably a decent opener. Your thoughts on this match, Matt? Because New Day, they're setting records. They still got the belts. I know you've said before, do they really need the belts now? If you're over, you're over. Luke Gallows and Anderson, they've been feuding with these guys for quite a while now. I think WWE creatively have been a little bit sort of up and down with the guys. Are they comedic, or are they just sort of arse kickers where they're just going to go in and tear the place up like when they first debuted? I really liked that intensity, but then you start to see that comedic element, which I wasn't too fond of, and then of course they had to play second fiddle to AJ Styles for a while. So it's been up and down for those guys. What did you make of this match, Matt, going in? And obviously, I will say this much, the odds definitely were stacked in favour of Gallows and Anderson going into this as heavy favourites. Did you see it that way going into this?
Well, I was kind of a little bit swayed, because maybe we shouldn't look too much at the odds, but they did kind of sway my way of thinking, because beforehand I was kind of thinking, New Day, they are setting new records. They don't need the titles, but the only reason really for them to keep the titles now is to break a new record. You know, like will they surpass Demolition? I guess that is the question now. But when I was thinking about it, I was thinking, well, you know what? Like this whole feud between the club and New Day is kind of reaching its like boiling point now, reaching its pinnacle. It's got to come to a conclusion. So I was thinking, well, Bullet Club needs something. You know, they've looked bad since they've got here. You know, they haven't really made an impact. So I was thinking, if they get the titles, at least that could be something for them, because right now their careers are really not going anywhere.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. It's a shame because, you know, these two guys were so good in Japan. I really like Anderson a lot. I think that guy's got so much potential, not only as a tag team wrestler but also as a singles wrestler. I think there's a good future for him if he's served right. But this is one of those times now where I feel like I saw it sort of unfolding. You know, they started so strong in the match, Matt, that I thought, okay, this is their night. The way they started the wrestling. What was your sum up of the match towards the end? We had a lot of people writing in, Matt, about did we find it slightly odd that the baby faces sort of cheated to win? Did you have a problem with that yourself, Matt, or was you fine with that?
It depends on how you look at the New Day, isn't it? Because that was when they were top, wasn't it? When they were really like sort of not quite good guys. They were cheating and stuff, and then they were getting a lot of heat. But that's what really got them over. If you've changed your opinion of them and you think now that they're 100% like on the face side of things, then I guess it could be shocking. But for me, I was kind of shocked because I thought they had made that full transition, but now it's sort of like it was a jog of my memory, thinking, well, where they came from, you know. They didn't always play fair, so I can't really blame them.
Yeah, and the idea that New Day went over on this, was you cool with it anyway? The fact that, you know, that was the outcome. Like, where do Gallows and Anderson sort of sit now? Are they just going to be second tier towards, you know, maybe going up against Enzo and Cass, or is that their role now to kind of groom the next guys through to the New Day? Or because, you know, you've got to remember heels and faces here. It's not likely that Enzo and Cass are going to be challenging New Day anytime soon in the current way of things. So, I mean, for Gallows and Anderson, I've got to say I think from being a sort of big market tag team coming in, their sort of credibility has gone down. It's plummeted a bit in the in the share prices, let's say. It's definitely gone down in that way. So for those guys, you know, where do you see them going next, or is this a feud that's going to go on longer?
Well, that's the problem now, isn't it? Because they've had a couple of matches now. This was supposed to be the payoff match. You know, whichever way you look at it, they lost. You know, they were pinned this time round. But yeah, it really does feel like they're going to become a second kind of tier tag team, because after that had finished, it did kind of make me think what was next. And there's only two possibilities that came into my mind, and that was one, that the whole cheating of the New Day has set them up so that you have a thought in your mind that they're not really faces, and facing Enzo and Cass isn't such a big deal because, you know, New Day might cheat. But then my other thought, which is my preferred thought, was that like someone who could really benefit out of this would be a team like the Revival. I would like to see them come up, and that would be